Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan, the Motor City Madmouth, and I have two special guests joining me tonight. And Mike Brodsky, welcome to the big show.
Good to be here, Scott. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Got to know Mike covering the Jacksonville Jaguars. Been up to 2 games. Saw the Detroit Lions game and the Tennessee Titans. Hoping to get up there this weekend. We'll play it by ear. And the star of this broadcast is the birthday boy himself, Leon Searcy. But no, Leon, I won't sing happy birthday to you because you're not supposed to go deaf. This is not a Memorex commercial, just so you know. But I will tell you happy birthday, Leon.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, you ready to get in some heavy lumber here, Mr. Searcy? All right. So, all right, Leon, tell us how you got started writing this book.
Well, I mean, I wrote the book probably at the in my life. I was as rock bottom as you can be as rock bottom. And you know, I don't want to give too much away from the perspective of the book, but I was actually in a motel room. Hadn't had many friends. My family wasn't talking to me. And I spent a lot of time alone by myself, and it's something that my spirit told me to tell my story. And I remember jumping out of the bed at like 2:30 in the morning, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I just started recording and writing down information about my life growing up, some of the pitfalls, the highs and lows of my life. But the book actually started at the very lowest point of my entire life, and then you know, thanks to Mike, you know, Mike was, you know, co-author of the book. I was able to be able to produce it, come into fruition, because, you know, this was like a 10-year project for me. I mean, the book was a journey from, you know, grew up in Washington, D.C., Orlando High School, you know, playing at the University of Miami, playing in the NFL, and then the pitfalls of me after football. So I just started telling my story, and it was a project where I thought I was going to give up on it a long time ago, but something in my spirit told me to just stay at it. And then you know, I came into Mike and WSA and Charlie, World Sports Alumni, and you know, we put the pieces together, and then it manifested into a book.
Very good. All right, well, I got to tell you, Leon, I love the title, Fourth Down and Damn. Where did that title come from?
Well, you know, initially the book, I remember when I finished writing the book, initially the book was called a Diary of an Athlete's Memoirs and Notes. And I remember when I wrote the title down, I said, this title sucks. I said, this is the worst title ever. I said, this book is never going to come about. But then I looked at the lettering of the title, A Diary of an Athlete's Memoirs and Notes. And I said, wait a minute, that spells damn. So initially my book was called Damn, but then I added the fourth down so we could have the football aspect to it. So I made it Fourth Down and Damn. But it's an acronym of Diary of an Athlete's Memoirs and Notes.
So for all you folks out there that are looking for creativity, Mr. Searcy just gave it to you. I got to tell you a funny story. My late mother used Shiloh Morganroth, Fading Hair is Living Art. She was a big hairstylist, and then I was just messing around like you know, you out there just messing around. You don't even think about what you're doing. Well, Scott, sports can offer tough tasks. And, you know, and when you talk about acronyms, you take all these letters, put them together, and all of a sudden you're able to develop a meaning. I find it pretty interesting how you ended up doing that. So really good stuff. So, all right, so let's talk about the fact that this book is the first from World Sports Alumni Publishing. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about World Sports Alumni?
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. World Sports Alumni, WSA, you can kind of see it on my shirt here. World Sports Alumni is an association of former professional athletes, and we've got a lot of athletes that people might know the names of, guys like Nick Anderson of the Orlando Magic, or you know, for boxing, we've got Evander Holyfield, Riddick Bowe, we've got Pinklin Thomas, all former heavyweight champions. In football, guys like Brandon Merriweather, Santana Moss. Our CEO, you might have heard Leon mention the name Charlie. Charlie Williams is a former billiards champion known as the Korean Dragon back in the day. For baseball, we've got guys like Ricky Weeks and Jemile Weeks, the Weeks brothers. And what we do with World Sports Alumni is we try to bring athletes together and really connect them with the community. So we have a lot of companies that want to bring athletes to the events that they're putting on. And so we'll connect the companies with the athletes that way. And even just connecting the athletes with each other. A lot of the athletes have gotten together and they've done different work together professionally and kind of sharing ideas and sharing thoughts about how to sort of survive in the post sports world. Once you retire from sports, it can be a little tricky because you're not getting as many calls and, the agent stops calling. And so we're just trying to keep the athletes out there, keep them connected. So with World Sports Alumni Publishing, this is really the first book that we kind of put together, and we're hoping to bring some more out in the coming years to come here. But so with Leon, it was just such a great story, and what a great opportunity to be able to take his stories that he was putting together and put them together in this book, get it out there into the public. And we had a great launch event. Leon, tell us a little bit about your thoughts when we did that event about a month ago up in Jackson. How that sort of came together.
I mean, it was an outstanding event. First and foremost, the Jacksonville Jaguars are on board with supporting the book. They allowed us to, do a book signing right out of the stadium, right outside the stadium, and it just happened to be in a game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, where I played for the Steelers as well as the Jaguars. And we had a nice little setup. We had a nice little booth and tent. And a lot of Steeler fans came through. A lot of Jaguar fans came through. And a lot of them, they had no idea that I was writing a book. And it was cool because they came by, they bought books, I signed autographs. And, everybody thought they knew my story until they read the book. And a mass majority of Steelers fans and Jaguar fans, purchased the books, while we were there outside the game, right outside the stadium before the game. So, it was cool because, I played with both teams. And, a lot of the fans asked me where my loyalty was. And I always say, listen, I was born a Steeler, but I was raised a Jaguar. So I was being very politically correct when it came to both sides. But it was a cool event. And then I enjoy cigars. We did a large party at this spot called Island Girl Cigars on Gate Parkway. And we had, it was sold out. We had a lot of our sponsors there, a lot of my friends there, a lot of people that were contributing to the book. They were there. So it was a festive event, and we had a great time. We sold books, made a lot of connections, took care of our sponsors who sponsored the book and everything. So it was a great day. It was a great opportunity to network with a lot of people. So I had a great time. I know Mike had a great time, and I know Charlie as well had a great time. So, we took care of our sponsors and the people who support the book for the long run.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And certainly for anybody that's interested in learning more about World Sports Alumni, we would strongly recommend visit our website. It's www.worldsportsalumni.com. Very simple. But you can kind of check it out, see a little bit more about the organization if you're looking to connect with us. Certainly for anybody that is a former professional athlete, any former professional athletes can join the organization for free. Leon has actually just taken over the role of running the World Sports Alumni Jacksonville. So if there are any Jaguars out there or any other professional athletes in the Jacksonville area, reach out to Leon or reach out through World Sports Alumni. We'll connect you with Leon. And, certainly just out of curiosity, Leon, I'm curious to know, how did you find World Sports Alumni? How did you originally connect with WSA?
I think I connected with WSA. I think it might have been on social media, to be quite honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think I saw Charlie. Charlie reached out to me on social media. Charlie Williams reached out to me on social media. And initially it was just a situation where, he was recruiting me as another player, coming to the organization. And he asked me some of the things that I was doing. And I told him, I was, doing sports talk radio here in Jacksonville. I was doing color commentary for the Jaguars during the preseason. And he said, that's good. He said, I want you to be a part of WSA. And he had guys that I'd known that was already as a part of the organization. I'm good friends with Brandon Marietta, Weather, who went to University of Miami. I was good friends with Santana Moss as well, went to University of Miami. And then I said, oh, yeah, by the way, Charlie, I'm writing a book. And he was like, oh, really? And I said, yeah, I need some help writing the book. So, you know, WSA made it happen. He got in contact with Mike, and then we finalized the book, and we made it happen.
Right.
Well, you know, Leon, you talk about your ties to the Jaguars and the Steelers, and let's take a little bit of short memory back when the Jaguars hammered the Steelers up in Pittsburgh, and Leonard Fournette had a big football game, and then they had to win twice during their unbelievable playoff run. So why don't you go over what it was like, knowing that you have been a part of both organizations, and the Jacksonville Jaguars shared some success, had some success against them, especially with Leonard Fournette running amok.
Well, I mean, you know, the Pittsburgh Steelers and Jacksonville Jaguar rivalry probably had a lot to do with me, to be quite honest with you. I mean, because the Steelers, you know, I became a free agent in 1996 after we lost the Super Bowl 30 against the Dallas Cowboys, and you know, I hadn't signed a contract with the Steelers, and I remember Bill Cowher telling me, he was like, Leon, you know, I don't care what they say organizationally, I draft you, because I was Bill Cowher's first pick ever. I was his first round pick ever, and he told me, Leon, before you make any decision about free agency, call me. So it was a situation, as this is in my book, you know, I'm telling one of the stories in my book. And I told my agent at the time, Drew Rosenhaus, I said, listen, I don't care whatever team wants me. I said, Pittsburgh gets first dibs. And so ESPN came out with this top 10 free agents of 1996, and they had me at number 5. And I told him, and Drew was like, and I told you, I said, listen, Drew, Pittsburgh gets first dibs. And so weeks went by, and I saw all these guys signing these contracts. And I was like, Drew, what's going on? I said, all these guys are signing before me, and I'm one of the top free agents, whatever. He said, Leon, you know, the Steelers don't think you're worth the money you're asking for. And I said, I didn't believe him. So Drew put me on the phone, unbeknownst to the Steelers. I was on the three-way phone with the Steelers, with my agent, and I heard the Steelers just bashing me. They would, not me being young and egotistical and arrogant, not understanding the art of negotiating, you know, where you're high and you're high, they're low, and you meet somewhere in between. I heard the Steelers just bash me. And so when I got off the phone with the Steelers, I told my agent, I said, forget the Steelers. I said, I can go anywhere and prove to them that I could be as good as I was a Steeler. And my agent, 48 hours later, had the Jacksonville Jaguars on the phone. And my agent called me and said, Leon, we got a team for it. I said, who is it? He said, the Jaguars. I said, the Jaguars? The Jaguars suck. I said, I'm not going to Jacksonville. But I signed with the Jaguars. And I think me leaving Jacksonville was a bitter taste to the Steelers. And from that point on, I think that we developed a rivalry between the Steelers because they were where we wanted to be. And we constructed our team to beat the Steelers, and we had a rivalry. That whole the 90s, the late 90s was a fierce battle between us and the Steelers for the division or whatever, and I think that carried over into the to nowadays because unfortunately we're not in the same division now, but the Jaguars always had some stench about beating the Steelers. But I love the rivalries when I played because I played against most of my former teammates, and I always stuck it to them when we got the best of them.
Well, amazingly enough, those two games that they won, the postseason game as well as the one during the regular season, undoubtedly contributed to one of their best seasons ever, knowing that they were so close to getting to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the Jaguars in 2017 probably had one of their better seasons that they've had in the last decade. And that game that they played against the Steelers, I mean, offensively, defensively, I mean, I think we beat them 46-43. We beat them by a field goal, and made it to the AFC Championship game. So, I mean, that was one of our better years or whatever. But we knew in order to get, like when I played, and I knew that in order for us to get to where we wanted to be as a team, that you eventually had to beat the Steelers. And in 2017, we beat Buffalo at home, and then we beat the Steelers on the road. And next thing you know, we're in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, I was actually at that Buffalo game. the 10-3 game. All right, let's stay on the point with the Steelers, Leon. You played in a number of playoff games with the Steelers and Jaguars, as well as Super Bowl 30 with the Steelers. Any special memories of those postseason games?
Well, unfortunately, I remember the Super Bowl because I remember walking off the field knowing that we were the better team, but unfortunately, we lost. Our quarterback, Neil O'Donnell, threw 2 interceptions that cost us 14 points that ultimately cost us the game. And it was nothing more humiliating as a player having the confetti of the Cowboys falling on you while you're walking into the locker room. And I remember being interviewed by the media, and the media came to me because, contractually, you're obligated to talk to the media after the game. And so the media asked me, Leon, do you have any, perspective on the game or, what happened in the game, whatever. And I remember the only words I said to the media was, to hell with the Cowboys. And I turned my back and I went in my locker. But that game, that losing that Super Bowl was probably my worst loss in my collegiate professional career.
Really? Okay. Interesting. So, all right, Leon, as a Miami Hurricane, you were part of 3 national championship teams. What do you remember most about those years in South Florida?
Oh, I love being a Hurricane, everything about being a Hurricane. I love my teammates. I love my coaching staff. I think in 1991, actually in 1992, we played Nebraska for the national championship. And we beat Nebraska 22-0 in the championship game. And I remember hugging Mario Cristobal after the game and looking up in the Orange Bowl saying to myself, and it saddened me, and I cried because I said to myself, you know what? I'll never be able to put on a Miami Hurricane outfit again. So that was as gratifying as it was winning a championship. It saddened me because I would never be a Miami Hurricane again.
Well, obviously that 1991 Miami Hurricanes team that won the national championship, I saw them win it. We saw them win at the Orange Bowl against Nebraska during those days. Do you remember how classy those Nebraska fans were? People from the Midwest and Nebraska fans are known to be very classy, aren't they?
I couldn't tell. If they were classy or not. My only concern was beating them. I couldn't tell if they were classy or not. But I can say this, though. I can say before the game, because Nebraska technically was the Big 12 champion,
right?
Tom Osborne requested that we not run. We were known for running out in the smoke. So Tom Osborne, because Nebraska was a Big 12 champion, they were technically the host of the Orange Bowl. So right. Tom Osborne requested that we not be able to run out of the smoke before the game. And our mascot, Sebastian, went to a firehouse, went to a fire station, and got a fire extinguisher and sprayed it before the game when we ran out in the smoke. Because running out of the smoke at Miami was just something special and traditional about us running out of the smoke. But Tom Osborne didn't want us to run out of the smoke for whatever reason. And our mascot, Sebastian, his name is John Rock, went to a fire station, got a fire extinguisher, and he sprayed the smoke so we could run out of it for that championship game.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the 1989 national championship too. I know in 1988 they finished number 2, and 90 they finished number 3. That was a heck of a team. When you talk about the fact that they should have won in 88 too, but the refs screwed them in the Notre Dame game. Why don't you go over that a little bit more?
Well, I did. That's one of the particular games that I wished I had played in. I was a redshirt freshman. I was actually a backup to John O'Neill, who was the right tackle at that particular time. We got screwed in that game. Cleveland Gary's touchdown was called a fumble. It was the Catholics versus convicts game, so they say, the way it's coined. But that team was that team was good enough to win a championship. And I remember Jimmy Johnson telling me that, when we scored the touchdown to be down 31-30, the coaches in the press box told Jimmy Johnson to kick the field goal and tie the game. If we had tied the game, more than likely Notre Dame and I would have split the national championship. But Jimmy Johnson told the coaching staff in the booth that we don't come to South Bend to tie, we come to South Bend to win. And that's the reason why we went for 2. But if he had to kick that extra point, we would have been tied 31-30. And at the end of the season, we would have both been undefeated. And we probably would have spent the national championship. But in retrospect, if I had to tie Notre Dame for a championship, I probably wouldn't wear the ring.
Well, there's a history with those two schools, and I'll never forget when Jimmy Johnson put a 50 spot up against Notre Dame, and they didn't want to play him for a while. You have any comments on that?
What's that? Say that again. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. I remember that Notre Dame and Miami have a history, and Jimmy Johnson, when he went out there and put a 50 spot in Notre Dame, they want to play him for a while, but yet it's okay for Notre Dame to go out there, run the score up and anybody else, but when it gets hammered to them, they don't handle it too well, do they?
No, they don't. They don't. You're talking about in 1985 when we beat them 58-7.
Exactly.
And they were upset because we retired their coach and we embarrassed them on national TV. Listen, Jimmy Johnson always had this saying, it's not our job to not score, it's your job to stop us.
No, I got to tell you, I really don't care for Notre Dame, and being a
Neither do I.
So there.
I have a hierarchy of hate, and Notre Dame sits atop of it.
Well, being from my neck of the woods, I'm a Michigan Wolverine deep down inside. I graduated from the University of South Florida, and if you know anything about Michigan and Notre Dame, that Michigan doesn't like Notre Dame, then you can tell that I've built into the Miami Notre Dame, where I've seen a couple of those games too. And
well, listen, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Okay. I'm not sure how to really take that one. But
well, listen, you don't like them, I don't like them, so we're friends.
Beautiful. And we're December babies, even better. All right, so let's talk about a road trip here. You know, when you visited Florida, Florida State, Miami, why Miami?
Well, you know, when I was being recruited, I only played 1 year of high school football. And when I was being recruited, I took visits to Miami. I took visits to Florida and Florida State and Miami. It was just something about Miami. It just had this confidence. They just knew that they just believed in themselves to a point where it was. I don't know. I don't want to say it's intoxicating, but I just gravitated to the fact that they just believed so much in themselves. And the other visits that I took, I mean, they didn't have that same belief. I don't know if it was cockiness. I don't know if it was arrogance. But I just knew that at Miami, they wanted to be champions, and I wanted to be a part of that. So that's the reason why I gravitated to Miami, because the guys that were there enjoyed, they loved football, and they believed that they were going to be champions, and I wanted to be a part of that process.
So is it true you didn't want to play in the cold weather either?
No, I'm a Florida boy. I'm not playing in the cold weather. Absolutely
Exactly.
not.
That's my point. Yeah, okay. So therefore, you didn't want to leave the state of Florida to begin with.
I did not. Listen, if the Dolphins had drafted me in '92, I would have gladly stayed a Dolphin. But the Steelers drafted me, so be it.
Well, let me tell you this, okay? When you talk about Miami, I know that as I looked in your book that Melvin Bratton was in it. And didn't he give you a little bit of a tour out around South Beach and showed you a little bit of town, a little bit of
he did. Yeah, Melvin Bratton is my guy. Listen, Melvin Bratton was my host at the University of Miami. And, you know, I grew up in Orlando. I was a sheltered kid. I didn't get out much. So me leaving Orlando to going to Miami, I mean, he showed me the nightlife that I had never seen before. I saw things that would probably be illegal in 50 states, to be quite honest with you. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the atmosphere. I enjoyed the vibe, the energy, everything that went along, you know, being in Miami. So I knew Miami was the place for me. I didn't know how I was going to survive Miami, but I knew that I wanted to be there.
So what was Jimmy Johnson like to play for?
Jimmy Johnson Jimmy Johnson was a stiff drink with no chaser. All right, he was. Jimmy Johnson was hell on wheels. You never felt comfortable in Jimmy Johnson's presence, whether it be in practice, whether it be in meetings. He kept you on your toes at all expense. I mean, listen, our freshman orientation, when all the freshmen came in, Jimmy Johnson walks in the meeting room at freshman orientation, and he said, gentlemen, welcome to the University of Miami. If you're not here to win championships, you need to take your ass home. And he left. I mean, he set the bar so high at Miami. It was, your scholarship was every day in practice. Your scholarship was on the line. Whether it was or not, he made you believe that. He made you believe that any moment that you ever slacked up, that you would be out the door. And that intimidated me. So every day I came to practice, I always gave my all.
Well, back then, you have a lot more choices for college football in the state of Florida these days than you did then. For example, you have University of Central Florida, Florida Atlantic University, USF, and FIU. What are your thoughts about the growing presence of major schools in the college ranks? And do you think you could have ever fit into those programs, even though they're at that point? I consider Florida State, Florida, and Miami, being a Detroit guy, as the big three: General Motors, Ford, and I got General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, and those are the big three, if you get the analogy, Leon.
Yeah, I mean, Miami, Florida State, and Florida are the big three.
Right.
You know, I'm always open to schools that, you know, kids give them options. You know, there wasn't options 20 or 30 years ago. If you didn't go to Florida State, or Miami, I mean, you had to go leave the state. So, I mean, I appreciate the options that they have with the other colleges or whatever. So it gives kids more opportunities. So, you know, listen, if you can go and play football and get you a degree and graduate, I'm all for it.
Well, you have those four schools too, but even back then, you know, the television situation is a whole lot different. Being an old school guy like I am, once upon a time they only used to have so many times you could be on national television over a period. Now everybody televises it, so you can get as much exposure at FAU as you can USF. But back in the day, you weren't able to do that as well. So, but what are your thoughts about those four schools along with the other ones I probably haven't mentioned?
Well, I mean, you know, a mass majority of athletes that played back when I played, they were trying to get exposure to get to the next level. And you went to the big schools to get the exposure so you can make it to the next level. But, you know, nowadays, you know, any team you go in, you know, FIU, FAU, South Florida, wherever, you're going to be on TV and you're going to get exposure. You know, so the roadway is open now for athletes to get exposure and get attention to go to the next level. So you don't have the competitive advantage that you had when I was playing because, you know, mass majority of the time the recruiting was like, hey, look, you come to Miami, you're going to be on TV. You're going to play Florida. You're going to play Florida State. You're going to play Penn State. A lot of these teams now have the options of being on TV and playing the big boys to give you the exposure that you couldn't get maybe 20 or 30 years ago.
Do you find, Leon, that there are way too many bowl games, or you think they can shave 5 or 10 of them off the top?
No, I mean, listen, the more the merrier. I mean, listen, not everybody can make the college football playoffs. I mean, but these kids, you know, they play 10, 12 games a season. And the exposure of being in the bowl, the festivity of being in the bowl game is very important. I mean, not every team is going to be able to win a national championship. But if you have a good season and you're invited to the bowl, I don't see any reason why you take full advantage of that.
Yeah, we talk about the fact that you really like Notre Dame. Not okay. So we'll talk about the Final Four. And I know Texas A&M could have made a claim to get in. So let's talk about this Final Four. Do you feel that Notre Dame deserves to be in this Final Four?
I don't think Notre Dame deserves to be in the Final Four, but I don't have any problem keeping them in the Final Four. I mean, they beat Clemson early in the season without Trevor Lawrence, and then they got dismantled against when Trevor Lawrence was there. But I don't think they should have dropped out of the top 4 because of that. They're going to get destroyed by Alabama, trust me.
Yeah.
But I think the teams that are in there now, I have a problem with Ohio State making it, and they've only played 6 games, and they didn't look that impressive against Northwestern. but so be it. I don't think there's a team beneath them, Texas A&M, Florida, that or teams behind them that deserve to be in the championship. I will, what I would like to happen is that for this one season only, I would like to see them expand the bowl, the playoffs to like maybe 8 games,
Right.
and give those 8 teams an opportunity to compete for a championship, because there's so much disparity between the teams who play 8 games, 10 games here, 6 games here. So why not give the top 8 teams an opportunity to compete against each other and see what happens?
I've often thought they should go to 8 anyways, because it looks like to me you have the college football playoff invitational, because that's really what it comes down to me, is an invitation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think 8. There used to be a show called 8 is Enough. I used to watch it with Diana Hyland and Dick Van Patten. We should take the 8 is Enough theory, okay, and have 8 is enough for the college football playoff champion and make it a real legitimate tournament. I understand not going more than that, but I can see your point definitely going there. So.
Mm-hmm.
So as we look at the Miami Hurricanes and the way they ended their season with a tough loss against UNC, what are your thoughts about the job that Manny Diaz is doing, and what's next for the Canes?
Well, I like Manny. I've met Manny on a couple of occasions. I think the verdict is still out on him. I was very disappointed in last year. Finished the season 6-7. They lost to Duke, they lost to FIU, they lost to La Tech in the bowl game. And I think that the Hurricanes, they won the games this year that they were supposed to win. But when it came to the games, the meaningful games, they didn't show up. They lost by 25 to Clemson, and they lost by 36 to North Carolina State. So that's troubling to me right now, that the meaningful games they don't win. I'm not totally sold on Manny. I think he does an outstanding job recruiting and getting the guys to play at a certain level, but I've got to see more. It's going to be very interesting to see, how this team turns around. And, it's crazy to say at the University of Miami, an 8-2 season is disappointing. But my worst season at Miami when I was there was 10-2. So, if you don't set the bar high enough, then they won't, the standard. If you set the bar low, then you accept the standards where they are. At Miami, if you're not winning championships, there's a problem. But I'm be very interested to see what they do next year, because they're getting their first game out the box next year in 2021 is against Alabama. So we'll be able to see where Miami stands as far as a team when they go up against the big dogs next year.
I've often wondered, Leon, whether Butch Davis should have been rehired, because he did all the dirty work to get that program back on track. And, obviously he's in charge of FIU, but Butch Davis did a good job, especially since the program was in a little bit of turmoil.
Well, when they fired Al Golden, I was campaigning to bring Butch Davis back because he did an outstanding job in revamping the University of Miami when they came off of probation. The 2000, the 99, 2000, and 2001 team, the 2001 team that won a national championship, had a lot to do with Butch Davis, putting that roster together, even though Larry Coker got credit for it. So I was really surprised that he didn't get an opportunity as far as an interview for the job. But Mark Richt was a nice hire, but I would have loved to have one of Jimmy boys back in the seat again.
Well, Leon, I know you're probably a good broadcaster, but you just gave me a great segue to where I'm going. Thanks for allowing me to bring Jimmy Johnson back into this thing, because I was looking for an excuse to do it, all right? We talk about Jimmy Johnson, what he did with Miami, and we know that with the Dallas Cowboys, I'll tell you what has Jerry Jones done without him? Nothing, okay? But, when we talk about the job that Jimmy Johnson did for the Dallas Cowboys, because I know that Barry Switzer is a beneficiary of a piece of jewelry thanks to Jimmy Johnson, and Barry Switzer should be sending Jimmy Johnson a Christmas card or a gift all the time. Not only do you have the jewelry, but the cards, and again, he was a beneficiary of that third ring. So to find the job that Jimmy Johnson did in Dallas, and then the second part of that question, Leon, is do you feel that Jerry Jones needs to grow up and put him in his ring of honor? If that isn't disrespect, then tell me what Rodney Dangerfield's really name is. I know that's a loaded question.
Well, I tell you what, the Dallas Cowboy organization would have never been the same if Jimmy Johnson hadn't went there. You know, Jimmy Johnson was the architect of putting the Cowboys back on the map. Just the talent that he was able to assemble, the draft picks that he did, the heist when he traded Herschel Walker to the Minnesota Vikings to get all those draft picks. And you got to remember, a lot of people don't remember, Jimmy Johnson started off with the Cowboys at 1-5. His first season there, went 7-9. Next thing you know, he went to the playoffs. Then they won a Super Bowl. So I mean, Jimmy Johnson, he built his team on toughness, mental toughness, physical toughness, speed, aggressiveness, and believe it or not, you know, in 1992, I almost was a Cowboy, to be quite honest with you, because Jimmy knew his guys at Miami, and he wanted Miami guys on his team. If Jimmy Johnson had stayed in the Cowboys for a decade, I guarantee you, instead of winning back-to-back Super Bowls, he would have won at least 4 or 5 Super Bowls. He would have been the Bill Belichick of Dallas if he had stayed there for a whole decade.
Well, the real word about what he did to Minnesota was he fleeced them, hosed them.
Oh, he did. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, he really fleeced them. And I got to tell you, growing up a Detroit Lions guy, the Lions' last playoff win was against the Dallas Cowboys, and they won it big over at the Silverdome. Lions haven't done anything since, and that was a growing lesson for the Cowboys. And you're right. I don't think there's any question in my mind, Leon, that if Jimmy Johnson had stayed in Dallas and Jerry Jones would have eaten his ego, that I could spell 4 or 5 rings by using my hand, okay? And he should have.
Easy. That would have been easy money. Absolutely.
Yeah, it really would have. So, so what is do you think Jerry Jones is eating humble pie, or will his ego allow him to know that he made the wrong decision? Because I still don't believe why they haven't honored Jimmy Johnson in Dallas at this point. I don't get it.
Well, it's his ego, but the Cowboys have been in ineptitude over the last 20 some odd years. They've won 2 playoff games in the last 20 some odd years, and you haven't hired the right coach. I mean, if you kept Jimmy Johnson, you'll be sitting on at least 5 rings right now. I truly believe that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. I remember years ago, the last time the Detroit Lions ever won a championship was on my birthday in 1957, and that was 5 years before I was born, by the way, so go figure. The curse of Bobby Lane, the curse of Jimmy Johnson. You see how this all ties in? So let's go ahead and bring this to the present, Leon. You have a radio show on 1010 XL in Jacksonville where you talk about sports and the Jaguars. What do you think it's going to take to get the team back on track?
Well, I think first and foremost, we need to the culture here in Jacksonville has to change. It starts from the top to the bottom. I think we need to get more than likely we're going to get a new GM. We're going to get a new head coach. And I think the culture in Jacksonville just has to change. I mean, from top to bottom. I tell people that all the time when I was with the Steelers, there was tiers of excellence that was expected out of you from the top to the bottom, from the ownership to the guy who folded your towels every day. And until you hold that everybody accountable to excellence, you'll have what we've been having over the last decade or so, where we've struggled as a team. And we just gotta pick the right people to help move this franchise forward. That's the only way we're going to have any kind of success. And it's going to start at the end of the season. It's going to be very interesting to see what the ownership does and pick the general manager and picking the head coach. Right now, we got the number 1 pick in the draft. More than likely, we're going to draft Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence is a franchise changer if you put the right pieces around him. So it's going to be very interesting to see this organization, move forward because we've had 20 years of just dismal play and dismal picks and dismal franchise free agents. And it'd be nice to see the Jaguars start winning again.
When the New York Jets beat the LA Rams yesterday, and nobody saw this coming, Could you believe that for a year like 2020, which has been bad for a lot of us, that the Jacksonville Jaguars would even be talking about Trevor Lawrence? If this town gets excited about Minshew Mania, holy moly, do you think that Trevor Lawrence would be the mayor or the president of this town, knowing full well that, well, first of all, what he gains here is he goes potentially from the New York Jets to Jacksonville, and I can only imagine how many tickets he'll sell, and it doesn't hurt that he won't have to pay state income tax either.
Oh, absolutely. Hell, he might get his own street corner here in Jacksonville. As much love as he's been getting. Listen, I saw him play Saturday against North Carolina. He is the real deal. I wasn't that impressed with Justin Fields when I saw him play against Northwestern. Too many inconsistencies. I didn't like his pocket presence, but Trevor Lawrence, he's precise. He's accurate. He can run the ball. He just looks like a franchise quarterback. So, if the Jaguars don't screw it up in the next 2 weeks by winning a game, I think we're good to go.
One of the things I like to joke around about between the New York Jets and the Jacksonville Jaguars is I think one of the best salesmen I've ever seen in my life is Rex Ryan. And the reason why I say that is Tim Tebow, to me, if he had any sense at all and really wanted to play quarterback in the NFL, he should have forget about that Wildcat gimmick he had up in New York, and he had a chance to play in his hometown, Jacksonville. He could have put fans in the stands, and that would have been a good opportunity for him potentially be a starting quarterback in the league for a town that loves him and embraces him. Can you believe the irony how everything has come full circle where you talk about, Trevor Lawrence, oh yeah, he'll be a New York Jet going to Jacksonville, but meanwhile, Tim Tebow should have been Jacksonville, went to the New York Jet. You talk about ironies or what?
I was never a big fan of Tebow coming here, just a big fans in the stands. I know he's a Jacksonville native. I know he would have been popular. But Tebow was an outstanding college quarterback. I don't know how well he was as a professional quarterback. Marketing wise, yeah, he could have came to Jacksonville, but I think Trevor Lawrence is legitimately a NFL quarterback that can actually help us win some games. I think Tebow was more of a novelty because he was from Jacksonville. He would have been a fan favorite. I think they would have showed up, but I'm not sure how many games we would have actually won with Tim Tebow. So,
in other words, you're telling me, Leon, that you weren't as high on Tim Tebow as a pro quarterback, but he suits the college style pretty well.
Listen, Tim Tebow is probably one of the 10 greatest college football players of all time. College. But as a professional, not so much. That's just my opinion. Now, I know some Gator fans that are probably listening to me right now want to cuss me out, but that's fine. I just got to speak the truth. I'm just saying. He was a great college football quarterback, probably one of the greatest college football quarterbacks of all time. But the NFL quarterback, listen, I tell you what, he wouldn't be on my fantasy team. I tell you that right now. How about that?
Hey, I love it when you speak the truth, Leon. I'm telling you. You know what GMTA stands for?
What's that?
Great minds think alike.
There you go.
Hey, I'll make sure you get a few one-liners before this broadcast is over and then some.
I appreciate that.
Oh, no. Hey, if you use them, you don't have to. You can credit me if you want. If you don't, you're going to still owe me a photo at some point anyways.
You get all the credit, baby.
That's all right. Hey, I don't mind give it a little love up I-95. That's for sure.
There you go.
So, Mike, were there any stories that didn't make the book?
Yeah, I mean, one of the great things about Leon is he provided me with just so much amazing content. I mean, he had, as he talks about, he spent a lot of time recording these stories, writing these stories down. I mean, I had a chance to just go through story after story and kind of put the book together and try to figure out what fit in there. Now, there were some stories that there was just no way we could put them into the book, and we certainly won't be talking about them on social media either. We're going to keep those quiet, but maybe if you find Leon, buy him a cigar and a scotch, and maybe he'll tell you one-on-one some of those stories. But one of the things that we actually did more recently was Leon's been recording a couple of other stories that we've been putting up as, Fourth Down and Damn uncut, some of the stories that didn't quite make the book because they didn't quite fit in. But if you check out our social media pages, you look for Leon either on Instagram or on Twitter or on Facebook, or follow my pages and you can see some of those, or just follow Fourth Down and Damn on Facebook too, and you can see some of these stories. But there were so many great stories. Fortunately, most of them did make the book, and we highly recommend, check out this book. We'll point out that, and we'll remind everybody again that there is a Kindle countdown deal coming up on Christmas Day. You can actually get the Kindle version of the book for just $1.99, $1.99. So that'll be on Christmas Day. Be sure to check it out. You can hear all the stories. Christmas Day, $1.99, Fourth Down and Damn, Lineman story.
Well, that leads me to my next question. So I want to make sure that everybody gets it a second time here, okay?
Yep.
For those folks that want a book, where can they find it? Give me all the different places that they can find the book.
Absolutely. So the easiest way is probably just to go to Leon's site directly, www.leonsearcy.com, LeonSearcy.com. And there's a link where it'll take you right to the Amazon page where you can get the book. The book, you can get the paperback, of course. That's available online. The Kindle version is available online. But we'll remind folks, again, mark your calendar for Christmas Day, December 25th, because you can actually get the book, the Kindle version, for just $1.99. That's going to be the cheapest, best way, easiest way to get it. Christmas Day, $1.99 for this. But even if it's not Christmas Day, you can still get the book through Amazon. And it'll soon be showing up also at Barnes & Noble and other bookstores as well. But Amazon's probably the easiest, fastest way to get it. And the best way to get there is just through leonsearcy.com. Click on the link. That'll take you right to the book.
Very good, folks. Now you have it. By the way, this is the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Glad to have Leon Searcy on the broadcast along with Mike Brodsky. Been a great broadcast with you guys, I'm telling you. We're all over the map here. We're talking college, we're talking pros, we're everywhere. And we're talking about a book that if anybody doesn't buy it, shame, 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 as Gomer Pyle would say. Although I don't really say it with the same old Southern twist here. When it gets hammered by Sergeant Carter, but whatever it is, it is. But,
Thank you, Scott.
So meanwhile, Leon, is there anything that you want people to know about you or the book that, that people should learn about who you are, what type of individual, what you strive for, and so forth?
Well, I mean, it's my life story. It was an amazing ride. I wouldn't change anything about it. I know people ask me all the time, hey, Leon, would you change anything about your life? No, because, I've never lost in life. I've learned. I learned through my mistakes, poor choices I made. And another reason why I wrote the book has a lot to do with the fact that I mentor a lot of offensive linemen. And I mentor a lot of kids that are in high school that want to go to the next level. And I tell them, I say, listen, you've got to be mentally, physically, and spiritually prepared for the NFL because it can corrupt you. It can put you in spots and places and people that you shouldn't be around. And when I look at my life when I played, the mistakes that I made, I take ownership of the mistakes I made because the people that I dealt with, I chose those people. So the onus is on me. And I tell kids, I tell athletes when I tell them, I say, you got to be prepared for the NFL because if you're not, it can corrupt you. It's very addictive. The lifestyle is very addictive. You're catered to. You're told how great you are. And you've got to be prepared for that. And you're going to have people who don't have your best interests at hand the vast majority of the time that want to take advantage of you, whether it be an agent, whether it be a financial advisor, whether it be women, whether it be your homeboy, people you grew up with. So you've got to be leery of those type of people that you deal with. So I think I went through what I went through. And the reason why I wrote the book is to be educational. My mom was a teacher. She was an educator over 47 years. She was a principal, guidance counselor, and a teacher. And the one thing she always taught me is that you never stop learning. You never stop learning. And I just want people that read the book to understand that, although I went through what I went through, I was able to overcome it. And I'm at peace now. The book actually made me at peace because I forgave my past. I forgave the mistakes that I made, and I'm moving on with my life. But I want the book to be a precautionary tale to athletes that go into the NFL to not to make the same bad choices that I made, you know, because you don't have to go through what I went through to understand that you don't have to go through what I went through.
So, Leon, we know you're on the radio, but to me, this is such a good story. Do you find yourself doing public speaking engagements talking about the same thing? I would think that, you know, you've got a bigger audience to share with the broad experiences that you have. To me, if Robert Redford was natural, but then you've got a natural story. So am I comparing you with Robert Redford? Maybe a little bit.
Well, listen, I'm open. And listen, talk to Charlie, talk to Mike, book me. I'm here. If you need me to talk, I'm here to talk.
Hey, don't worry. They can go through me if they want some public speaking. I'll try to, if you give me your contact number, I'll help you out a little bit. No big deal.
All right. Hey, listen, if I need to give you my email address, Leon Searcy Jr., 72.realmenblock@gmail.com. Hit me up or go on leonsearcy.com. If you want to book me, if you want to speak and engage, you want me to tell stories relative to the book, I'm open for it.
If I can just mention briefly with World Sports Alumni, that is one of the things that we do is certainly for folks that are looking to book Leon or some of our other athletes for speaking engagements. I agree. I mean, right when you look at this book, I mean, yes, it's a book. If you're a football fan, you're going to love the book. But it's also really it's kind of as Leon mentioned, it's really kind of a cautionary tale. It's a bit of a warning maybe to other professional athletes out there or other just high school and college athletes that are thinking about going into a career in sports. A lot of great life lessons in here. And certainly if you'd like to connect with Leon, visit him through the website or worldsportsalumni.com, and we can connect you with Leon for those kinds of speaking engagements. But again, even if you're not a sports fan, check out the book. It's actually just an amazing story about Leon's journey. A lot of great life lessons in here, and check it out. So again, leonsearcy.com, you can find the link to the book.
Yeah, these are the best kinds. You know, I got to make a confession, Leon. I've been thinking about writing a book for 9 million years. I haven't gotten around to it. So one of these days I'm going to get around to doing it. And just like you, Tom Lasorda once told me, because God delays does not mean that God denies. So for all you folks looking to go out there and write a book, Tom Lasorda once told me that when I was a young pup growing up. Now I have a little bit of gray hair, among other stuff. So we'll just, but you know, because God delays does not mean that God denies, and that's probably one of the motivations behind the book that we're talking about tonight. Leon, you know, I can't thank you very much for joining us. Mike, why don't you let everybody know they get a hold of you? I'll let everybody know how they get a hold of us, and we'll wrap up the broadcast. Mike, go ahead.
That sounds great. If anybody wants to connect with me, you can actually find me at either through incrementalimprovements.com. That was the first book that I wrote. I'll just give a quick little plug for that right here, incrementalimprovements.com. Incremental improvements, change your life one small step at a time. Also, you can find me on Facebook. Just search for Michael Brodsky, or on Instagram. You can find me at Mike_Brodsky. My Twitter handle is at Mike Brodsky FL, like Florida, Mike Brodsky FL. And that's probably the best way to connect with me.
And in terms of our social media here on Twitter, you can follow us at Tribune South. That's at Tribune South. Our Facebook and Instagram, South Florida Tribune, that gets it done. Of course, I'm friends with Leon on Facebook, the birthday boy, at least today. Anyways, we have a YouTube channel, so if you want to see the video version of this broadcast, we encourage you to subscribe for nothing, South Florida Tribune. So please subscribe, folks, to our YouTube channel, South Florida Tribune. You get to see great interviews like Leon's, along with other ones on there. We'll make sure that you have the video version of it there as well. Our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. You'll find all of our media distribution partners on there, as well as our columnists and the broadcaster on there. And the Jacksonville Jaguars are a proud media distribution partner. We like to post some stuff on there as well. You can email me at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Scott Morganroth. And you want to hear the audio version of the broadcast, you can find it wherever you get the podcast. But some of the main ones that we work with are Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, etc. Dot dot dot. Who knows how many there are? I can't keep track of them, but those are the main ones. But wherever you get your podcast, you get the audio version of this. So we have a lot of ways to get this. But again, you want to see the video version? So for the Tribune, you got Scott, you got Leon, and you got Mike. So meanwhile, on behalf of Mike Brodsky, our special guest Leon Searcy, my name is Scott Morganroth. We all want to wish you guys a happy holiday season. Mask up, social distance, be safe out there. Don't take this virus lightly. It is dangerous. And, Leon, I look forward to seeing you up in Jacksonville when the situation presents itself. But I can't tell you how much of a pleasure it's been to have you on this broadcast, Leon. Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. So, once again, on behalf of Leon Searcy, Mike Brodsky, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange.